What up, everybody? My name is Marcus Whitley, and this is Good Behavior. Now, you can find me on all social media at I am Marcus Whitley, and find any of my books, Both Sides of the Street, Choices and Consequences, Greatness Under Pressure, and Battling Demons, all on Amazon. Now, to keep up with the latest episodes, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. What's going on? My name is Marcus Whitley, and yes, this is Good Behavior. Now, in today's episode, I have a special guest with me by the name of Radames. You want to say what's up to the viewers?
How you doing? My name's Radames.
Now, I thought this would be an important episode because I wanted somebody to share with me on what it's like to be a father and how amazing that is.
Yes.
And it's often overlooked because, mothers are always favored and fathers don't get enough acknowledgement. So I felt like it was important to talk about. So why don't you let us know a little bit about, well, let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
How did it feel for you when you first found out you were going to become a father?
When I knew I was going to become a father, it was like the world to me. To be honest, my son changed my life. So having Joseph, my son's name's Joseph, having Joseph really changed everything, my outlook on a lot. He was like a redemption for me because having my daughter, I have a daughter as well, and that really doesn't get talked about a lot. I wasn't able to be in my daughter's life. So having my son was more of like a redemption for me. So when I had my son, I made a promise to myself, and having Joseph just changed me. It really made me feel like I was finally worth something. I was able to change his life. Like I dedicated myself just to be there for him. There was a lot of things I had to change, as far as just me and how I lived. And Joseph just, man, I can't even explain it. It was just he brought a transformation out of me, and a lot of fathers really don't get to showcase that. It's really not talked about enough. Unfortunately, most of the time it's overlooked. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's like, as a father, like you really gotta show that. Some fathers do, some fathers don't. It really depends on the man you are. And my son was like the way I was able to redeem myself. As a father, not being able to be there for my daughter, it really broke me. So my son is just my everything, man. Simple as that.
Okay. Now, I forgot to mention that one of the most important reasons I put you on here is the fact that you're a full-time father.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
that is huge.
Yeah.
And that is something, like I said, I wanted to celebrate, because there's a lot of kids that grow up without fathers, which is, once I became a father, like I couldn't understand how any man would not want to be in their kid's life.
I don't get it either.
Like,
I don't understand how some dudes just disregard being a dad. I could never really understand that myself. My dad was never there for me. My dad did 18 years in jail, of my life in prison, So like being the father that I am, and the fight that I had to go through just to be a dad, I could never understand how a father don't do that.
Yeah. So growing up without a father, what was your mindset for when you were thought about becoming a dad? Like, did you think that you were gonna end up being like him, or did you already know that you wanted something different?
That's a good question. So for me, at first when I had my daughter, I didn't take it as serious as I needed to because I was a little boy. I was 17 years old. And as I grew older, I realized how, me being selfish and not really realizing what it was to be a dad affected my child. So like being able to just be a dad, like I knew that it was coming, and when I knew it was gonna come, and I knew when I had to be a father, I really made sure that I was there, man. I made sure that I would know my child was never gonna go through that. You know, I was gonna make sure, and I knew for a fact that my child was never gonna go through what I went through. You know, growing up without a father, that I was always upset. I was always angry. You know, I still deal with anger and father's issues to this day. You know, and I try to make sure that my son won't ever have to deal with that. You know, it's a big thing when you don't have a father. You know.
Yeah. Because I mean, I went through the same thing when I was younger, and all I knew was I wanted different. Like I never wanted my kids to have to go through what I went through. But I felt like I wanted to give them the world. But one of the things that I've struggled with is with wanting to give them the world because you never had it, trying to find balance with not spoiling them at the same time or
Oh yeah,
not enabling
I
them.
struggle with that.
Like
I struggle with
that's
that.
tough.
You know, I always Joseph definitely is an entitled child. You know, I make sure. You know, he gets what he needs, and he gets even more than that. And I still try to give him structure. But that came later on. You know, sometimes I feel like being a disciplinarian. Sometimes you forget, like you want to just be there for your child in every way because you didn't have a dad. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's like it makes it so you want to be there, but then you got to remember you got to be the structure too. You know, and even now being a full-time father, you're trying to play every role. And let me just say this, like, shout out to every single mother out there doing it alone. You know, I finally see your struggle to the fullest, and I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for being there for your children, because as a single dad, even though his mother's still active, I really see what it is when you got to wake up every morning. I really see what it is when you have to do for your child. So shout out to all the real mothers out there, man, playing both roles, man. One thing I do want to say though, like, and so if you do have two parents, you know what I'm saying, even if you are a single father, even if your child is living with you, like, always try to create that balance with the mother. You know, that's key. I feel like, sometimes you might get caught up, always fighting with your significant other, or the your BMs, your mom, the baby moms. You always fighting with the baby moms, or I think it's the one that's one of the biggest battles.
Right.
You
Because
know?
you don't want your kids to grow up seeing that. Then they're going to think that's normal.
Yeah,
And now you're just repeating the cycle.
yeah, yeah. And for me, that was one of the hardest battles, because I've had my docket number goes all the way back to 2012. Like when you start a case in court and they go by docket numbers, mine goes all the way back to 2012 is when my case started, when I got started fighting for all the custody. So it's like I've been in a custody battle for that long. I've been in a custody battle
Wow.
for 8 years. Me going to court, but even I had gotten shared custody in 2012. So it's like he's seen everything. He's seen me and mom constantly going through court and fighting over him, and I hate to say it that we're fighting over him, but that's what it is. And that's the hardest part. Like, Joseph seen it all. He's seen me fight. You know, at one point I lost all custody. I had shared custody. I lost all custody. And then it was given back to me at one point. So it was a lot. You know what I mean? Him seeing that, there's been times where I had to go 4, 5, 6 months without seeing him. You know, that was the hardest. I counted every day I didn't see my son.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You know,
That's not easy.
so like when I went through that, it's just that was one of the hardest parts, was the battle. And understand when you go through the court system, like, that's gonna traumatize your child. No, there ain't no way around it. You know what I mean? If you're going through constant battles, and one day you got a set weekend that you're seeing your son, and then you're not able to see your son, you got to go for a contempt, put in a contempt. I've had to put in several contempts because I'm not seeing my son, and then your contempt doesn't get heard. A lot of times, I'm sorry to say this, but a lot of times the court system won't listen to a father, even on a contempt charge. You know, and it's sad. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's real sad because a lot of active dads get it the worst. And we live in Massachusetts, and a lot of times you're gonna feel like it's a woman's state, which it is.
It is.
But you got to remember, if you constantly are there pursuing and you're in the fight, they're gonna see that eventually. It took me 8 years. I lost twice just to get them to give me custody. And that's crazy to me. Because a lot of the times I would feel like the judge was being biased, and I had to get away from that outlook and stop thinking that the judge was there to get me, like coming for me. I had to really broaden my outlook on it, and just know that not everybody's coming for you. And that was when I started getting the judges started noticing, because I was focusing more on his education. Like I said, I'm a big advocate for my son when it comes to education. I've always been the advocate for his education. I've fought for his education. So it's like, if you sit there and you're fighting throughout the fight, they're gonna see that. They're gonna notice
Yeah.
that. But if you're not doing anything, you can't expect to win a battle when you go to court. If
They know who really wants to be a father. They can see it.
Yeah, but just to be noticed as a father, I feel like you got to be active. If you're not active, don't go to Pete. I've seen so many fathers get upset and frustrated when they get denied for visitation, or they get denied for this, but you're not doing what you're supposed to.
Right.
You're not working, you're not paying child support. And I hate to say it, but being a father, a big part of that is being a provider. But you also got to be on that emotional side. You got to be able to be a nurturing father. If they see you always getting upset in the court, that could be a big sign that you're not a nurturing father. That could be a big sign that you don't know how to deal with your child if they get upset, or how to deal with a child, period. And a lot of fathers get that confused too. They go in there, oh, she's not letting me see my son, but then they see your frustration, they see your anger. You got to be able to go in there and be on one level. And that took me, I think that was the hardest battle for me, you know, was just showing that I could be that individual that can control myself.
Now, when you were going through that process, were you able to like control that right away, or did it take you, because you said it was an 8-year battle?
Yeah.
Now, did you learn that along the way and they saw the growth, or did you already know going in there like, okay, I can't let them see me get angry?
Absolutely not. No, I didn't know that. I was going in there, I was always getting upset. I wasn't able to really conduct myself the way I needed to. I spent a good 10 to 12,000 altogether between both lawyers. So I felt like I had to lawyer up right away because I couldn't get it right, And then they would still, they still pick at the points where they make you answer questions even though you got a lawyer. And even then I would make mistakes, and to the point where, it took educating myself. I would read books on how to be a nurturing father. I went through the nurturing father program. I went through a parenting program. I went through a non-marriage parenting program. I did my own research. I tried to build my own parenting program, which I'm working on. And it took years for me to understand myself. And one of the biggest things is, as a man, even as a man, is you got to learn how to control your emotions. I struggle with it to this day. Like I said, the gym, I box, I like I said, your family, the Whitleys, helped me really like change myself and then convert myself to be that nurturing father figure. And that was big for me. You're not gonna know, you're not gonna know how to be. You're gonna be if you're a loving dad, I'm sorry to say it, but most of the time when you go to that court, your anger is gonna show.
Yeah.
There's nowhere, and there's no guidebook on how to be a dad.
No, not at all. But I mean, even when your kid grows up, like you're still figuring things out.
Exactly.
Like your kid can be an adult, and you're still learning new things, and it's still gonna be different because it's not you; it's somebody else's life that
Right.
you're looking after,
Right.
and that you care for, and that like it's
And I'm so passionate about that. I get emotional right now. Like, it's just like every day I'm trying to figure out what's the best way. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that's the biggest challenge for me. Cause you want to be strict. You want to be a good parent figure, but then you want to be loving. So you're constantly battling yourself in every which way, but then you're trying to figure out how to raise a man. So, going back to the court system, I want to touch back on a couple more things with that. You know, you're gonna go in there as a father, you're gonna be emotional. Don't let your anger come out of you in a certain way, be more controlled with that. That helped me a lot, you know. Being monotone, just staying at one level when you speak in the court system, that helped. But yeah, man, it was hard, man. It was definitely a battle. Every day's a battle being a dad, especially when you active. You know that, you know. Shout out to my man's. He an active father too, you know. He need to give himself credit. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times fathers don't give fathers credit, but my man's a great father too, so he knows.
Yeah, and like both of us were saying, like it's being strict is one of the hardest things because it's
Oh
like
man.
I love my kids so much, and it's like
Yep.
they can never do wrong in your
Yep.
eyes, and you be mad, but then
Yeah.
it's like
It-
it's tough,
Listen,
but it's I wouldn't change it for the world.
never. Never.
But I want to ask, being being a full time dad and being the man of the house, the provider,
Yeah.
how do you find balance with that?
Trial and error. Trial and error. Schedules help, you know. I'm a full-time father. I have full custody of my son, and I own a business. So not only do I have three different lifestyles to balance, I got to be a good dad in all of it. You know, out of everything, I feel like that's the most important. And you know, putting yourself on a set schedule helps. Working, I work night shift just so I can take him to school and pick him up. But then even again, you're up day and night. You know, I call Wednesdays. I call Wednesdays no sleep Wednesdays, because I know that's going to be a day off. But I know I got to work night shift on Tuesday, so I get out of work Tuesday morning. I bring him to school. I get up, go to my mother's. Sometimes I'll cook him breakfast, pick him up at my mother's, and while he's at school, I try to go to the gym or I go on a move. You know, I'm on a move. I own a moving company.
Okay.
So trying to, he'll be in school, I'll do a move, and I know I'm not going to sleep Wednesday. I'm used to that, you know? So finding balance, I would say get yourself a calendar, you know,
Yeah.
set alarms, sometime realize that you're always going to be tired,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh man, I was just talking about that today at work. Because I had just picked up another full-time job. So now having two full-time jobs, it's like I didn't think about it at the time because all I know is work. Like that's all I've done all my life is work.
Yeah.
But now thinking about it, like I'm not in my 20s no more.
Right,
Like,
right. I'm 35.
right. Like
You know?
our bodies aren't the same. Like
And let me tell you, I like to swear to God I'm young, but I'm not, you know?
it's tough. Like it's not gonna say it's gonna catch up to you. Like it's already up to you. Like
One more thing. You gotta have people. If you're gonna be if you are a full time father and you just get custody, you need a support system around you,
yes.
because you're not gonna be able to be a provider. You're not, and be a full time dad. And if you're a business owner like me, you got these three things to balance. You know, you gotta have someone that's gonna be able to be there for him too. Whether it's a grandmother, whether it's a sister, brother, uncle, auntie, whatever the case may be, work on your support system around you, because I would be nothing without my family, you know?
Right. And kids need to see that growing up. They need to understand the importance of family. But like that's one thing that is neglected.
Right.
And, like a lot of people
right.
like in custody battles, it's just like, give me, this is mine. I want
Yeah.
full custody, but never understand understand how it affects the kid.
Yeah.
Like they need to know that even though the parents aren't together, like they still love each other. There's still family on both sides.
Oh, yeah.
That they can always go to, that are always gonna be there for them. Like that's huge for kids.
Yeah. Like, I'm a full time dad, but I'm gonna say this. It just happened, you know? I just got custody March 13th, you know? Shout out to my son's mother, Samantha Cologne. We still co-parent, you know? I'm not taking my son from my the mother of my, his mother. That's, even though I might not like what she does, and there might be reasons why I got full custody. I'm not gonna, out of respect for her, I'm not gonna get into that. But at the same time, you know, Joseph has always been in a better place with me, and I know that in my heart. But I still try to co-parent, man.
Yeah.
I still try to involve her, even though I don't need to, and I have the full custody. I still involve her, because it's out of respect. You don't, just because if you have the luxury, some fathers don't. So some fathers, the mother's just not there at all. The same way the fathers are not there at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's not talked about as much,
Yeah.
but it's still a factor. You know what I'm saying? So if you have the luxury of co-parenting, co-parent with your son's mother, you know, still include her in his life because he needs that,
Mm-hmm.
If your son still has that active love for his mother, it's going to be beneficial for him. I just feel like there's a lot of things that I struggle with, but co-parenting is, it might be one of the biggest things I struggle with, but you still got to try,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Because you got to think, like, it's not just for you or about you. You're doing it for somebody else, and that's gonna mean something to them. Like, you gotta be selfless when it comes to
Right.
trying to parent. Now, a few times you mentioned owning your own business.
Yes.
So let's get into that part now, because that's a huge accomplishment.
Right,
Much respect to that.
Right. Thank you. Thank
So
you.
I see the hoodie, Bobby B's moving service. So
Yeah.
where did the name Bobby B's come from?
Bobby B's is like a family, like fun-loving family nickname that me and my uncle threw around as me being when I was a child. So we called each other Bobby. Bobby, what are you doing? It was just like a family nickname that we threw around. We call each other Bobby. So
Okay.
my uncle is my lifetime mentor, father figure. If you go to my website, BobbyBees.com, BobbyBeesMovingService.com, it explains the story in detail. My uncle has been my mentor, father figure, taught me everything I know about business structure. So it was in honor of him, just having that,
Okay.
because Bobby is like, if I put up, like, when we say it to each other, it's like Bobby, like it's more like a loving nickname thing. It's more of a funny
Yeah.
aspect to it. But Bobby Bees is, if you want to really get into detail about the company, Bobby Bees is a different type of moving service. So we work within the customer's budget. A lot
Okay.
of moving companies, they have high rates. They charge high dollar amounts, high hourly rates. You get charged for every flight of stairs. At Bobby B's, we don't do that. I give you a
Okay.
white glove service. We wrap and prep every item, but we also work within your budget. A lot of times, customers will come to me with a certain dollar amount, and I offer discounts to single mothers. I offer discounts to military. I offer discounts to seniors, across the board. I work with a lot of organizations like Catholic Charities. I work with the RAF program, Wayfinders. Shout out to Wayfinders. That's one of my big contracts.
Okay.
I also work with the DV services, Domestic Violence Alianza. Shout out to Alianza. They got a great service going on in Holyoke. CHD. I've helped move foster children when they age out of foster care. I've helped move refugees. We're also ranked number one on localmovers.com. You can look that up
Oh,
as well.
nice. Congratulations to
Yes,
that.
thank you, thank you. When I got that award, man, I almost cried, man. You know,
That's huge, man.
to get noticed like that on that level. I love what I do. I love the moving industry. But Bobby B's is, like I said, it's a different type of moving service. So when it comes to what I do, you know, I just show love to my community. If someone doesn't have the money per se to a certain level, I offer, I'll show them how to get into the RAF program to get help with their moving. Like I said, I've helped a lot of different people as far as just refugees and everything like that. And we do, like I said, white glove service. I want to really emphasize on that because we take pride in wrapping your items. We take pride in your, whatever you have. When we'll move whatever you need. A lot of companies, they charge for flights per stairs. We don't. I go that extra mile for my clients, and so we don't charge by the flights. We offer a full packing service for the elderly.
Okay.
Anybody that's over as a senior citizen, gets a free packing service if needed. Like I said, I do things a lot differently. So if you do need any moving services, you can contact me at 413-390-5684. You can also put in a request form at the website, BobbyB'sMovingService.com. And like I said, I came from the ground up. I saved every dollar to start my company. I didn't get no loans. My credit isn't in the greatest condition. Anybody can own a business if you have the drive, man. And I put the drive. I saved the money. I went through legal Zoom, got my LLC. I worked over 100 hours a week for months at a time. And I saved, got my LLC. I did everything I needed to. I started my labor company. I'm a moving labor company. So what that basically means is we do all the labor.
Okay.
They deal with the vehicles. So the customer will deal with the vehicles. Sometimes we'll team up and work with them with the vehicles. But for the most part, we handle all the labor, you know. Like I said, I built it from the ground up, man. I can't say that enough. I am one of them success stories. I grew up in the projects, subsidized housing, watching my mother struggle every day of her life, watching her sit there breaking her head at the table. You ever watch your mother break her head at the table, not able to pay a bill? I never wanted that from my mother. I take care of my mother every day. This business helped me to buy my mother her car. I pay. I was able to give my son gifts that I was never able to get as a kid.
Right.
And we were blessed to be in the 3% of businesses in my first year in America. Like,
Wow.
so that was a big accomplishment for me. When I went to go do my taxes, and they told me that, I just felt proud. You know what I'm saying? To be where I came from and to be able to stand in that 3% of America and in businesses in America, that means the world to me. So Bobby B's is a success story of a young boy from the projects that just had a dream to succeed, man.
And on top of that too, your son is seeing this.
Yes.
Like, he's seeing the success.
Yes.
But he's also seeing how hard you work, and something that you wanted to do for years.
Yeah.
That you went out and accomplished
I
it.
always wanted to be a businessman.
Now that's showing him that he can do whatever he wants if he works hard enough for it. So that's huge right there.
We was in the other day. He had an assignment at school, and he said when he grew up, he wanted to work with me in my company. That was like, that was like everything. That was like everything I worked for.
Yeah.
To hear my son that he wants to be something like me, that's a lot to me, man. It means a lot to me. Like I said, like getting full custody of my son, I get choked up. So I'm sorry, but
I mean, it's all good here.
my son changed my life, man. So if you got a little boy and that boy look up to you, or even if he don't look up to you, make him look up to you. Be an example, you know what I mean? Because I was not always the individual I am today, and what I'm about to say is for all the fathers out there. Like, I've struggled with drinking, and I've been in trouble, and you got to change. You change for the better. So just because you in a position where you struggling, don't get it twisted and think you can't change, because I did it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And a lot of fathers, they get that. They don't really, they don't understand that. They always think, yeah, man, I'm already fucked up in the game, Oh, I ain't going to bring this to my child. I've heard fathers say this type of stuff, where they just have no encouragement in themselves. They don't believe in themselves because they feel they too far gone. You're not too far gone, That was like, I always thought that I was being, hard on myself, or I was always beating on myself, go get a drink. Man, I'm having a hard day. Let me go get a drink, and and when I had my son, I was like, nah, that's not going to be me. It didn't happen right away. I've had so many different things in my life when I was being a dad, like trying to figure out how to be a dad. Like I said, like, shout out to Darren Whitley. If it wasn't for the Whitley brothers, his family. If it wasn't for the Whitley brothers, I'd be lost as a person, as a father, as an individual. Darren Whitley really showed me how to be. Not only did he teach me how to box, and you know what I'm saying, I used to compete. Boxing taught me not only how to box, but to be a dad and to be a better father. I've had moments with my son where I'm being too harsh on him in the gym, and I'm being too hard on my son, and I start crying while I'm hitting the mitts because I'm like, damn, I'm being too hard on my boy, and they help me create that structure. You gotta build yourself, man, and there's so many different learning curves. Like I said, I had that situation um with my son, and I wasn't gonna touch on this, but I feel like it's necessary because you talked about one of your questions was, and I'm just I'm not trying to deep too far into it, but you talked about it as how did the battle affect my son? That was and it's like affected him tremendously.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that's traumatizing for kids.
yeah. So I lost. So I had they gave me full custody because of a situation that was going on with my son's mother. I'm not gonna say what happened, but she ended up getting charged with some things, and you know he ended up going. He ended up. How can I say this? Like he had my. It was so. It hurt me so much. So I had full custody at one point because of what mom did, and charges didn't end up going through for some reason. They were still going through the process, so I had nothing to stand on why they gave me full custody. So they gave the custody back to mom's, and my son threatened and went to school, and he was so upset about the whole situation. And from it didn't happen right away. He went back to mom custody. He was happy. He was cool, and then a kid ended up picking on him one day in that school, and he was already set on the fact that he was going to go to Springfield schools, so he did not want to be in this school, you know. And kid picked on him, made him feel some type of way because of the sweater he had on. My son, and he was already not doing his work because he didn't want to be living with his moms. He didn't want to go. He didn't want to go to that school no more. He threatened to kill himself,
Wow.
you know, and he threatened to kill himself in school, and this was after he went back to mom's. So that played a that broke me, you know, and that was real hard for me because that's my little boy, man,
Right.
and to know my little boy threatened to kill himself, like devastating. And this is how it affected him. So like I said, like think twice before you go to court. How this is going to affect your son, and figure out. I don't want to necessarily say hide it from your child,
Yeah.
but never get too in depth in detail of you
Yeah.
going to court. Because what my mistake was letting him know when I was going to court, letting him know, yo, puppy, daddy might lose custody. I need trying to prepare him.
Yeah.
But I was traumatizing him. You understand what I'm saying? There's certain things that a child does not need to know.
Right.
You know?
Because you think you're being open with them, but at the same time, like they're gonna feel that the same hurt as you, because they're gonna see that hurt in you, and then now you got their minds racing about everything that's going on. They're uncertain of what's gonna happen to them.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's gonna traumatize any kid.
Yeah, like when I lost custody, and I made the mistake, I was so scared that she would, because we had to battle, and she would be upset. She was so upset, and then she was so upset at me that I took him. You know what I'm saying? And then he goes back to live with her. I was scared I was never gonna see him again. So I went to the school and told him I lost custody, thinking I'm doing the right thing. Because again, trial and error as a dad, you think you're doing the right thing, trying to prepare him. Listen, you're gonna go back to your mom's today. I should have never did that. I should have just picked him up from school regular, and brought him to mom's and then prepared him. I put him in a school setting where now he's out of his mind.
Right. Now you can't focus for the
You
rest
know,
of the day.
and it's like I said, trial and error. You're trying to figure out how to be a dad, but you got to make sure you make the right decisions. So like, what I want out of this interview is like, I'm being so open because I want fathers to know, like, these are, these the mistakes I made. I don't want you guys to make. Even though I have full custody as a father, I am not perfect. I've made 1,000 mistakes. I've been through, like I said, I've had history with drinking. I changed that. You gotta make a change for yourself. And be open with yourself and make sure that your life don't affect your child. I feel like that's the biggest thing that we make a mistake as little man.
Yeah. What happened? Sorry, I'm almost done. Okay? As long as you be quiet, okay?
Yeah,
Yes.
let him come down. Again, when you got to be a father, there is no filter. I'm going to make him put this in the interview because you cannot get away from being a
Yeah.
dad at all.
Yo, he's in most of my episodes.
Oh,
But
man.
I mean, it's still, even through everything, it's the best feeling in the world. Man. Just being a dad, seeing your kids smile.
Right.
Hey.
What's up, little man?
But so you got any other things going on besides the moving company that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so pretty soon I'm working on starting a program called the Father's Initiative.
Okay.
This is going to be big. Like, this is going to be my next business venture. This is going to be what I believe most fathers need. And it's going to be completely for free. We're going to be doing it in public places. We're going to be talking about financial literacy. We're going to be having different events where we have temp agencies there. I did one before, but it got shut down because of COVID. We
Okay.
weren't able to really, get it in there. So not only am I going to have credit advisors there, like I had a credit advisor at one event before, the Father's Initiative is going to be a 4-week course to where we talk about being a nurturing father. We're going to be teaching the differences between custodies, whether you have you're fighting for full custodial rights, what the difference is between having shared legal custody and having shared physical custody. That's going to be a week where we teach the difference in having both custodies.
Okay.
I feel like that's something that most fathers don't even know. And my main focus is going to be juvenile fathers.
Okay.
I want to help juvenile fathers, whether it's helping them get into a summer program so they can make money, or whatever the case may be. So not only is it going to be a parenting program, this is going to be a little different. Every parenting program that I ever had to go to, I had to pay for. How are you going to pay? How are you going to make even a kid or a young kid pay to learn to be a father or to learn all these things, and you're making them pay for it?
Right.
They're not even, they're
Nobody's
kids.
gonna want that.
Exactly. And then how they gonna respect it when they had to spend their last dollars on it? Some of these guys, I knew guys at the program, they'll go to the program, they're busing all the way from Springfield, all the way to Worcester just to get the program.
And they could be using that money on their kids.
Yeah. And they gotta spend it to be a father. They gotta spend it to learn this program or whatever the case may be. So what I'm gonna do is with the Father's Initiative, not only are we going to be a parenting program, but we're going to teach these fathers how to go to temp agencies, how to register and find jobs quickly and get placed.
Okay.
And I want to reach them before they end up doing something stupid. As a young dad, I'll even get into it deep where when I was younger, and you end up getting caught up in the streets trying to make fast money, trying to be a dad. You trying to make money. So before they get to that level, I want the Father's Initiative to be able to teach these young guys that's not the way.
Right.
You know?
Because the risk is bigger than the reward.
Exactly, man. And personally, like, it's so hard trying to sit there and be a dad with no paper, no money. Like, you gotta really be able to do that. So, like I was saying, I'm getting a little off subject, but it's gonna be a 4-week parenting class. We're gonna be doing teaching leadership, being, we're gonna have work 1 week on leadership and being assertive as a parent, 1 week on being a nurturing father. We're gonna do 1 week on custody and court battles, and then the last week is gonna be more set on just co-parenting. I feel like co-parenting.
Okay. Yeah, that would be big to have.
Yeah, and most of these programs, they touch these subjects individually, and they make you pay and go, nah.
Yeah, so you got to go to a whole bunch of different programs and courses.
Yeah. And then they never, what they never clarify is what custodial rights are, or what physical and legal custody having is. I feel like that's the biggest thing. Like, how are you supposed to, know what it is to be a father if you don't even have rights? Like, a lot of people don't know this, but if you won't, like, let's say for instance, right, you have shared legal and physical custody, right? Okay, so let's say you only have shared legal custody, right? You only have access to documents. That's all they give you. You don't have no decision making in the school system. You can't make no medical decisions. You can only oversee um, medical records, and you can't really make no decisions. The custodial parent has to make the decisions. So let's say you go to a IEP meeting, right? For instance, this happened to me. You go to an IEP meeting, and they don't explain to you. You know, they explain what's going on with the child, but they don't explain to you that you can't make the decision. You might go in there, you're advocating for your child, and then the mother say something different. They're gonna be like, "Yeah, but we're gonna go with the mother because she's the custodial parent."
Yeah, see, I didn't even know all that before.
See, so that's what I'm saying. That's what I want to teach. I want to educate these guys because I put time and effort to be a dad.
Yeah, no, that's gonna be important for a lot of fathers out there.
Yeah, man.
Like,
Father's Initiative is gonna hit Springfield hard. I promise you, because a lot of times they don't tell us these things, man. I had to learn by trial and error, searching things on the internet and talking to lawyers. I've had two different lawyers, you know. Shout out to Michael Grilly. He played a big part in my custody battle when I first started. Shout out to Andrew Kuchar. He's a great defense attorney. He won me full custody of my son. You know, so shout out to the both of them. They educated me extremely on rights. Like I said, like, don't think it's impossible. I did it.
now, is there a time frame on when you want this to come out and how people can reach you to sign up for it or get into it?
Oh, right now we're still in the beginning process. I'm still writing a curriculum.
Okay.
I'm still writing a curriculum, trying to get everything figured out for that. So I want to say by the end of this year.
Okay, so it's just something to be on the lookout for.
Yeah. If I can get it up within the next couple months, I'll definitely release. And probably do like an event where we're just what we're gonna be sharing. Like I still want to collect certain fathers. Like I want you to speak. Definitely got to have you speak if I have an event. I'm looking for certain. If you're a father, right? So this is for everybody, right? So if you're an active father and you're familiar with your rights, you're familiar with just being a nurturing father, or if you've been through several programs, anything in any way that you can help, I'm looking to build a team. So if you have any knowledge that you feel that I missed out on in this interview, please get in contact with me. My name's Radames Rodriguez on Facebook. You can contact me through Facebook. Rad420 on Instagram. You know, you can hit me up through those two lanes. You can even contact me through my website, for the moving website. You know, which is BobbyB'sMoving.com, movingservice.com. But like I said, I'm looking for individuals that want to be active fathers, that are active fathers. You know, eventually, I want to make this as big as possible. But like I said, it's in the beginning stages. Like I said, I got shut down a while ago because of COVID. But yeah, man,
It's gonna get there, and then
impact.
like once active fathers start to see that this is a thing, everybody's gonna swarm to it because that's important. So I mean that's gonna blow up. This is we all gotta support and I mean, as passionate as an active father is, everybody's gonna want to be a part of that. Cause I mean, we got stories for days.
Yeah, I can sit here all day.
Yo, like we can go on forever, and I know.
Man, I got so many memories with my son, man.
Yeah, even just having like a session on just sharing stories, just feeling good about being a dad, like.
I think that got to be a part of the program too.
Yeah, because that's something that is gonna make everybody in there feel proud of, and everybody like a lot of support groups are just for like the negative things and go like open up and express your problems, but to have one where you're going about positive things,
Right?
like that's needed as well.
I feel like
we don't see that often.
You don't. You see every support group out there for families. I want to be to the point when you call, the information hotline, when you call 211, I want to be that person they send you to when you're a dad. It's sad, man, because I've called, the information hotline 211, and there's no programs out there for fathers. It's sad, man. It's
That
really
is.
sad, man. And every program you have, Nurturing Fathers in Holyoke. I went is a new program. I didn't get to go to that. I went to the one in Worcester. Um, they started that. And I'm happy for that. But that's the only one. How many support groups do they have for women?
Yeah, countless.
Countless, right? So why can't we have support groups for fathers? Another thing they don't touch subjects on. How many men's mental health is at an all-time high.
Yeah.
Mental health problems for men is at an all-time high. And taking a man's child is a big part of that. Like how are you supposed to be what did y'all spell? Got it. You don't have your hands full, man.
Oh, I already do. I mean, it's tough because like you said, you went months without seeing him. Like
Yeah.
when
Only when he was little. Like, but still, that affected me. I counted every day.
because I know for me like for the first week when I didn't have him each night because I work first thing in the morning. I go to work before he went to school. Like so I wasn't able to have him at night. Like I sat there and cried every night. I slept in his room. Like it was tough. Like it took a while to adjust.
I had to pull myself out of that.
Like
I hear you.
even when the time goes by, it doesn't get easier.
No.
Like that's the hardest thing. Is like yeah, you're able to get through it and you look forward to the next day that you get to
Yeah.
see them, but those nights are still tough.
Let me tell you, one of the memories that I have, I went, I think it was, I went like 174 days without seeing him. I counted every day. And I went to court gripping this basketball we used to throw back and forth. And I remember every day I would grip this ball. It was like my stress ball because it was a toy that we played with. Not having my son for that moment, it did something to me. And like I said, I never hide the fact that I wasn't able to be there for my daughter. If I ever able to reconnect with her, like I would love to make that reconnection. My daughter's name is Adalia. If you ever get to see this, Adalia, I love you, and just know Daddy loves you, and I'm out here. And if I ever get to find you, baby girl, I'm gonna be there. But that traumatized me, and so when I was scared that I wasn't gonna be able to have my son through that time span, and I remember just gripping that ball every night, and like that was like my way to cope. So when I went to court, I lost. It crushed me. They gave me no visitation. I had to go longer without seeing him. Granted, shout out to my son's mother. Shout out to Samantha. My son's mother, Samantha Cologne. She let me see him when I wasn't even supposed to for Father's Day. So she was still letting me see my kid. But I wasn't illegally able to be seen with my son. Over nothing. I'm not a criminal. I have no criminal record. I've had my cases I fought and beat, but I wasn't able to be a dad that was took it from me, and I had to battle. First court case, I had to battle and get she had custody when I was a kid. The courts took it from me. Then they took my visitation. I had to fight to get my visitation back, and it wasn't her. It was the courts.
Yeah.
It was literally not my baby mom. It was the court doing this shit to me, and it's like it's very hard because you grow certain hatred for the probate court system, and how do you overcome a hate for a system that took your child from you and still respect them?
Right.
That's so hard. It's like people don't understand how intricate being a dad really is. Like there's so many things that you just, it's so hard to not be able to understand. Like I want to use the word it's an enigma. You understand what I'm saying? It's very hard to understand that. You know what I'm saying? Because it's almost impossible to like, I gotta go through this to see my child. How am I supposed to respect this court system? You gotta find a way to disconnect. That's the only way I was able to do it.
Now, I hope this episode was able to help you understand what it's like to be a father and definitely show appreciation to a full-time father
Yes.
and all active fathers. Now, I'd like to thank my special guest, Radames. My name is Marcus Whitley, and this is Good Behavior. So until the next episode.